Okay, so picture this. A crime scene, right? It's so tragic, so um, disturbing that even veteran Hong Kong police officers, guys who'd seen a lot, were just completely haunted by it.
Yeah, truly gut-wrenching stuff.
And that's where we're heading today. We're doing a deep dive into this really unsettling case from April 11th, 2004, Tin Shui Wai, Hong Kong.
Hmm.
Our goal here is really to unpack this whole thing, look at the sources we have, and try to understand why this case, well, why it still hits so hard years later.
Absolutely. It raises some tough questions.
So it all kicked off with this very strange phone call. A police officer, probably half asleep, gets a call in the early hours.
Right. And the voice on the line? It's odd.
It's a man's voice, described as calm but weak and sort of rushed.
Which is immediately weird given what he says next.
Exactly. He claims someone broke into his house, killed his wife and his 2 daughters.
Just lays it out, almost matter of fact.
And then, bam, hangs up. Just like that.
The officer, he felt something was off, that calmness. It was unnerving for such a horrific claim, but still, he had to act.
Right. Suspicion or not, you dispatch units.
Definitely. So police head to the address. When they get there, the outer iron gate, it's unlocked. A bit strange, maybe?
Okay.
But the main security door behind it, locked tight. They called out, banged on the door. Nothing.
Silence.
Total silence. Then one officer, he gets down, looks under the door, can't see much, but then he smells it.
Oh, no.
Yeah, a strong, pungent smell of blood. That's the quote. Right then they knew something was terribly, terribly wrong inside that apartment.
So the rescue team gets called, they break down the door, and what they find inside is just devastating.
It's horrific. A woman and a little girl lying in a pool of blood in the living room.
Oh, my God.
Another young girl found near the window, all 3 confirmed deceased.
And the woman, the report said her face was...
Yes, slashed multiple times. Just brutal. And nearby there's a man, gravely wounded. The husband. Severe abdominal wounds. He's barely alive, clinging to life. They rush him straight to the hospital.
So the scene is chaos, tragedy everywhere. What are the police thinking at this point? Initial theories.
Well, the first thoughts are maybe a revenge killing, or maybe the husband came home, found his family murdered, and was then attacked himself.
Okay, that makes sense initially.
And there was an open balcony door leading to rooftops, so maybe the attacker escaped that way.
Possible safe road.
But that locked security door, that's the sticking point. If it was locked from the inside, how did an intruder get out? It starts to poke holes in that theory pretty quickly.
Right, that doesn't quite line up.
Okay.
Well, let's get specific. Who were the victims?
The victims were identified. The mother was Kim Thuk An. She was 32, an immigrant from the mainland.
Okay.
And her daughters, twin girls, just 6 years old.
Twins? Oh, that's heartbreaking. And the husband.
He was Lee Bak Sam, 45 years old, critically injured, as we said.
So the investigators start processing the scene. What evidence do they find right away?
They collect what they can. Crucially, they find only one potential murder weapon, a knife.
Just one knife. Where was it?
Found near the injured husband, Lee Bak Sam. And again, that security door locked from the inside. It's a huge detail. It screams inside job, or at least someone known to the family.
Someone let in, maybe?
Exactly. They check upstairs, too. Everything's neat. No sign of a struggle, no forced entry. And critically, no fingerprints belonging to any stranger. None at all.
Wow. Okay. So no unknown prints. Door locked from inside. It's pointing away from the random intruder theory.
It really is. Meanwhile, Lee Bak Sam, the husband, he's in a coma. He's got a severe infection. He can't tell them anything.
And the city must have been reeling from this.
Absolutely. Total outrage. A mother and 2 little girls. It's the kind of crime that shakes everyone.
So the big question hanging over everything is, what was actually going on in that house before the police arrived?
And that's when the first major lead comes in, not from the crime scene itself, but from the neighbors.
Oh, the neighbors. What did they hear?
They told police that hours before the officers arrived, they heard a massive argument coming from the apartment. Really loud.
Hours before.
Yeah.
Not just right before the call.
No, hours. And they also said Lee Bak Sam and Kim Thuk An fought a lot. Frequently had conflicts, was the phrase used.
Okay, frequent conflict. That's significant.
And more than just conflict. Neighbors specifically mentioned Lee Bak Sam was known for, and this is a direct quote again, often beating his wife and children.
Oh, wow. Okay, that adds a very dark layer to this. So domestic violence was known.
Apparently, yes. It wasn't a secret in the building, it seems, which really makes you wonder what was happening behind that locked door.
So if there were frequent fights, often violent,
Yeah.
What was fueling all this? What was the root cause?
Well, the neighbors pointed to one major thing: money problems, significant debt.
Okay.
They said Lieback Sam was often drowning in debt. And it wasn't just debt, it was the consequences. Debt collectors were showing up.
At the house.
Yeah, frequently came to the house to harass him. So you have financial stress, harassment. It sounds like a pressure cooker situation.
Definitely. Did they find out who he owed money to?
They did. The investigation zeroed in on one specific creditor, a known loan shark named Vuong Than Heap.
A loan shark. Okay, that fits the debt narrative.
Yeah.
What else did they know about him?
He wasn't just any loan shark. He was described as a triad member, part of Hong Kong's organized crime scene. His specialty: high-interest loans, protection fees, the usual predatory stuff.
So a dangerous guy. Did they talk to him?
Oh, yeah. And Vuong, the loan shark, he didn't deny it. He admitted Lieback Sam owed him money, a substantial amount.
He admitted it?
Freely. And he also admitted he'd sent his guys, his enforcers, to threaten Lieback Sam and even beat him up. Multiple times.
Wow. Okay, so now the theory shifts again, right? This sounds like a potential motive for the loan shark. Revenge. Make an example.
Exactly. At this point, that becomes the leading theory. Did the loan shark, Vuong Than Heap, finally snap and order this horrific act as revenge or a brutal collection attempt? It seemed plausible, given the violence he'd already admitted to.
How did Vuong act when they questioned him about, a triple murder?
Surprisingly calm, maybe even unnervingly so. There was tension, obviously, but he kept his cool.
Calm? While being questioned about this, that's suspicious in itself, isn't it?
It can be, yeah. Or it could be confidence. He flat out denied killing anyone. His reasoning was quite pragmatic.
Pragmatic? How so?
He basically said, look, my goal is to get my money back. Killing Lieback Sam, or worse, his whole family, brings massive police attention, legal trouble, and, crucially, I lose the guy who owes me money. It doesn't make business sense.
Okay, that's a cold logic. But I see the point from his perspective. Did he have an alibi?
A very strong one, actually. He claimed he was gambling at a local casino with several of his men around the time of the murders.
Gambling? Okay. Could they verify that?
Yes. And apparently, he'd won quite a bit of money that night, which made him memorable. Witnesses, including casino staff and his associates, backed up his story.
A loan shark triad member with a seemingly solid alibi involving a big casino win. It almost sounds too convenient.
That's exactly what the police thought. It felt maybe a little too perfect. So while his story checked out on the surface, they weren't ready to let him off the hook.
So they kept him as the prime suspect, despite the alibi.
They did. You have admitted conflict, admitted violence, the debt. It's still the strongest lead they had. They checked his phone records, found nothing obviously incriminating, but they kept him under close surveillance.
Right. But sometimes, as you said, chasing suspects isn't the key. Sometimes it's the silent evidence that talks the loudest.
And this is where the case takes that dramatic, unexpected turn, because while they're watching the loan shark, the forensic results come back.
Ah, the forensics. What did they reveal?
This is where it gets really interesting and honestly quite shocking. First, the analysis of the wounds on the victims, the mother and the two girls.
Yeah.
It indicated the attacker was likely between 1.68 and 1.71 meters tall. So about 5'6" to 5'7", and right-handed.
Okay, that gives a physical profile. Anything else?
Yes. And this is the absolute bombshell. Remember that knife found near the husband, Lieback Sam?
The only potential murder weapon, yeah.
They tested it for fingerprints. And the only fingerprints found on that knife belonged to one person.
Let me guess. Lieback Sam.
Solely Lieback Sam, no one else's.
Wait a minute, hold on. His prints only. But he was the one found nearly dead from stab wounds himself. How does that even work?
Exactly. That's the massive contradiction, isn't it? How can the only prints on the murder weapon belong to someone who appears to be another victim? It threw the police for a loop.
Were they thinking maybe a struggle? He grabbed the knife? Or maybe an accomplice planted it? This feels like a critical turning point.
It was the critical turning point. It forced them to re-examine everything, especially Lieback Sam's own injuries.
What did they find when they looked closer at his wounds?
They brought in forensic doctors, consulted with the hospital physicians treating him, and the conclusion was unanimous and utterly chilling.
What was it?
Lieback Sam's severe abdominal wounds, the ones that nearly killed him, were self-inflicted.
He stabbed himself.
Yeah.
After everything else.
That's what the medical evidence overwhelmingly indicated. self-inflicted wounds.
Oh my goodness. So the picture completely flips. He wasn't a victim attacked by an intruder.
No, the evidence started pointing towards him being the perpetrator.
That just changes everything. What other evidence suddenly made sense in light of that revelation?
Suddenly, all those previously confusing pieces clicked into place. Remember, the upper floor was neat, no forced entry,
Right.
no foreign fingerprints anywhere in the apartment, no unidentified blood trails, no footprints suggesting someone else came in or went out.
In the balcony. The supposed escape route.
No traces of anyone climbing out that way either. Every single piece of physical evidence, the lack of intruder signs, the door locked from inside, the single set of prints on the knife, and now the confirmation of self-inflicted wounds.
It all pointed to just one person.
It all pointed directly and tragically to Lieback Sam.
So the investigation's conclusion,
Yeah.
it must have been.
Stark and horrifying. They concluded that Lieback Sam was the sole perpetrator. He killed his wife and his 2 young daughters.
And then tried to kill himself.
Yeah.
But he survived initially.
He survived the initial act, yes, but he remained in critical condition and died in the hospital 12 days later from his injuries and complications.
Which means he never faced trial, never faced
Yeah.
legal consequences.
Correct. His death closed the case from a legal standpoint. Justice, in the conventional sense, was never served.
Wow. So, with Lieback, Sam identified as the killer, but now deceased. The question becomes why? What could possibly drive a father, a husband, to do something so monstrous?
And that's where we need to dig into his life, his mindset, the pressures he was under, real or perceived. The investigation uncovered a lot about his personal struggles.
Okay, so let's unpack that. What was going on with him?
Well, for starters, he hadn't worked in over a year, unemployed. The entire family was living solely on government assistance.
So, serious financial hardship. We knew about the debt, but unemployment adds another layer.
Yes. But despite this reality, he apparently had this intense, foolish pride. Very traditional, almost macho views.
How did that manifest?
He absolutely refused to let his wife, Kim Thuc-Ran, work. He believed firmly, rigidly, that a woman's place was strictly at home. Earning money, that was the man's job, period. Even if he wasn't doing it.
Even though he wasn't working and they needed the money?
Exactly. It gets worse. When he found out she had secretly taken a job as a cleaner, just trying to help the family survive, he beat her severely.
Beat her for trying to help them.
Wow.
Twisted.
It suggests his pride and control were more important than the family's well-being. He seemed to use Kim Thuc-An as an outlet for all his frustrations about his unemployment, his debt, his perceived failures.
So the beatings weren't isolated incidents.
Not at all. Neighbors confirmed frequent beatings, verbal abuse. Sometimes he'd even throw her out of the apartment in the middle of cold winter nights, just lock her out.
Unbelievable cruelty. Was there jealousy involved too?
Immense and seemingly baseless jealousy. He forbade her from even talking to strangers. He apparently went so far as to cut up her clothes to physically prevent her from leaving the house.
Controlling her every move, isolating her. Classic abuser tactics.
Yeah.
How did Kim Thuc-An cope with all this?
The reports say she patiently endured it all. For a long time, anyway. Like so many victims, she was likely hoping things would get better, trying to keep the family unit together, especially for the twins.
But that kind of patience,
Yeah.
it often backfires with abusers, doesn't it?
Tragically, yes. Her endurance didn't seem to appease him or make things better. If anything, it seemed to make him worse. He took her tolerance for granted, felt he could get away with anything. The abuse escalated.
And then came those threats, the real chilling things he said to neighbors.
Yes, this is incredibly disturbing. He actually told neighbors quite explicitly, "I will bring my wife back, fatten her up with fish and meat, then kill her."
He said that out loud.
To other people.
Yes, and more. He said, "I've planned a shocking case for Hong Kong. I have nothing to lose. If I die, my wife and children must follow."
That's premeditation. That's monstrous intent, stated clearly. What did the neighbors do?
They were horrified, naturally. They urged Kim Thuc-An, pleaded with her to seek help from the government, from social services.
Did she finally listen? Did she try to get help?
She did. Eventually, the abuse became too much, even for her endurance. She filed a report with the Social Welfare Department.
Okay, so she reached out. What happened then? The department called Lieback Sam in. He apparently admitted what he'd done, expressed remorse, promised he would change his ways.
The classic abuser's promise after being confronted.
Exactly. And Kim Thuc-An, maybe desperate for that promise to be true, maybe pressured, maybe wanting to believe for her children's sake, she believed him. She went back home.
Oh, no. And did things get better?
No. The source material describes the situation after her return as even worse than before, a living hell. That attempt to get help and his subsequent manipulation, it seems to have just tightened the cycle of abuse, making it even more dangerous, which is sadly often the case.
A living hell. So the promise was empty. Worse than empty.
Completely. It led to the final desperate moments. On April 9th, 2004, just 2 days before the murders, after another brutal beating, Kim Thuk-an decided she had to get out for good. She secretly tried to flee, intending to divorce him.
She tried to escape again.
Yes. But Liebach Sam found out. He called her, and he issued a terrifying direct threat.
What did he say?
He told her, if you don't come back, you'll never see your 2 daughters again. I've bought a knife.
I've bought a knife, he told her that. Explicitly. My God, what did she do? She must have been terrified for her children.
Utterly terrified. She did the only thing she could think of. She contacted the police again, reported the threat, the knife, everything.
Okay, good. She reported the direct threat. What did the police do this time?
This is perhaps one of the most tragic failures in the whole story. The officer she spoke to apparently dismissed her fears, downplayed the threat.
Dismissed it. After he threatened her kids and said he bought a knife.
Unbelievably, yes. The advice given was for her to return home and try to resolve the domestic issue peacefully.
Resolve it peacefully. With a man who just threatened to kill her children with a knife he claimed to have bought? That's incomprehensible.
It's described in the sources as subjective advice and lack of professionalism, but the impact was catastrophic. That failure to recognize the extreme, immediate danger arguably sealed the fate of Kim Thuk-an and her little girls.
That's more than unprofessionalism. That's a fundamental breakdown of the system, meant to protect people in exactly this situation. It highlights how often these threats aren't taken seriously until it's too late.
Precisely. Overcome with worry for her daughters, feeling she had no other choice, Kim Thuk-an went back.
She walked back into the lion's den to save her children.
As soon as she was inside, Liebach Sam locked that security door, trapping her, trapping them all.
And then?
Then he attacked her with the knife he had threatened her with. After killing her, he turned on his 2 daughters. The reports mentioned they were pleading for their lives.
And bleeding. Oh, God.
After the killings, after this crazed bloodlust, as some reports put it, he seemed to regain that chilling calm.
The calm voice on the phone.
Exactly. He calmly called the police, made that initial report about a break-in, and then stabbed himself.
And was found barely alive, dying 12 days later. Case closed. No trial.
Officially concluded. Liebach Sam, the husband, killed his wife and daughters, and medical checks confirmed no diagnosable mental illness that could explain or mitigate his actions. Just cold-blooded murder fueled by rage, control, and failure.
Reflecting on Liebach Sam.
Yeah.
He should have been the one protecting his family, right? Their pillar. Instead, he becomes this complete failure, a coward, as the sources describe it.
Yeah, his refusal to work, the destructive, stupid pride, blaming everyone but himself for their problems, especially his wife. It's a pattern. He wanted the respect, the control, the comfort, but none of the responsibility or effort.
And Kim Thuk-an, her role is also complex, isn't it? That excessive patience and kindness mentioned. It's heartbreaking because she was the victim, but her endurance maybe enabled him.
It's a difficult point, but yes, the sources suggest that. If she had managed to leave definitively with the children after that first report to social welfare, maybe, just maybe, the outcome could have been different. Returning to that living hell proved fatal.
It really drives home a point we often hear about domestic violence, doesn't it?
Yeah.
That saying.
If it happens once, it will happen again. It's almost always true. Domestic violence tends to escalate. It gets worse, more severe, more dangerous over time, not better.
So for anyone listening, if you recognize any of these patterns, these violent tendencies, in your own relationship or someone you know,
the advice has to be, you must consider not staying. Find a safe way out. Reach out. Tell someone, authorities, friends, family, support organizations. Because staying often means the violence only increases. It's a terrifying reality.
In this case, happened in Tin Shui Wai, which sadly had a reputation for a high number of similar domestic tragedies around that time. It really served as a massive, tragic wake-up call, didn't it? About this escalating problem in society.
It absolutely did. It put a spotlight on the issue, forcing people to confront the realities of domestic violence hidden behind closed doors.
So this deep dive into the Tin Shui Wai tragedy, it's just profoundly sad, but it offers such stark, crucial lessons about how insidious domestic violence is, how vital it is to see those warning signs, the control, the threats.
And how hope, The hope that an abuser will change can sometimes keep victims trapped in incredibly dangerous situations.
It really makes you think, doesn't it? Considering Liebeck Sam told neighbors his plans, that Kim Thuk-am made that desperate call to the police about the knife threat.
It leaves us with a heavy question. What more should institutions, and maybe even the community, do to intervene more forcefully before it reaches the point of no return?
Yeah, what are the societal pressures, the attitudes that allows someone like Liebeck Sam to think and act that way?
Oh.
And how do we get better, much better, at protecting people like Kim Thuk-an who are trapped in what she herself eventually recognized as a living hell?